Vino, you and I had another topic that we wanted to discuss, and this may get some people fired up, because there's obviously, you all know that I'm in medicine, and there's some talk about how to allocate resources and things like this during times of scarcity, like a pandemic, for instance. And so people ask, how much is a human life worth? How much are we willing to spend as a society to save someone's life? And so this gets back to the value of human life. And there's a lot of people who say a human life has no value, or it's infinitely valuable, right? You can't put a price on it. It's priceless. What do you think, Vino?
This is so tough because there's like three sort of perspectives you got to take on this. Like, one is who's like, when you say what it's worth, what you mean is somebody's giving value to another person, right? So like there are sort of three factors there: the individual who's being evaluated for their worth, their value; the person who's receiving the money, because presumably we're talking about somebody dying, but not necessarily, but in the most typical case.
Sure.
And then obviously who's the money being taken from. And
Yeah.
all of those three things are pretty complicated, because the person giving the money might be something like a government who's come up with some calculation for some grave error or some lawsuit or what have you. And they're going to have different incentives about what the value of a life is. It might be the value to the family. It might be the value to the country or the municipality or what have you that's deciding it. And then,
but do you not think that there's a limit?
a limit,
Like, just because we live in a universe of limited resources.
Yeah, I think you can put a value on a human life. I'm not sure where you stand on it. I'm just not sure the fair way to do it. I think, like, I know that like there's statistical models that suggest you should have like a statistically consistent human life value to smooth out the bumps in like expected age, or like lifespan and quality of life between things like race, age, gender, things like that. Is a 4-year-old worth as much as a 65-year-old and whatnot? And I know some equation like that exists. I don't know the details, but and probably many exist.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that equation inherently ignore the value of the human life? Like, wouldn't it always cut some people short? And therefore you'd presumably be intentionally misvaluing human lives for the sake of statistical probabilities, which I guess in a way would be whatever you want to call it: racist, sexist, ageist, in either direction. If you do it or not, you're kind of being unfair.
Yeah, it's right. And but I mean, as you say, I think a lot of these formulas do exist because people who pay for things like healthcare have to decide what they're going to pay for, and they don't have infinite money, right? So how do you think they should do it? Solve this problem for us, Vino.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the only fair way is to have presumably some statistically consistent value of life, and if you want to be valued higher, we have a system for that now, right? Life insurance.
Interesting.
You can increase your own value. You get to decide your own value as a person in the eyes of the world, through life insurance, I suppose. Either through disability and life insurance, whatever, death. All of those things can, you obviously pay more to do that, but then I guess presumably and interestingly, that would mean that your value is associated with how much life insurance you can pay for.
Exactly.
So I guess your economic value
you're back to capitalism.
Oh no, how did I get here again? Every turn. Yeah, I guess that would be it, right? You in the society today, which is the only conversation we can have, your value would be decided by the value you can generate, which is as depressing as that is. I think that the perfect way to, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the perfect way in my mind is like, let's say we're in a post-scarcity world, no money, no problem. What's the value
Star
there?
Trek.
Yeah. So if you were responsible for somebody's death, what happens? Like if you need to pay out some of money, something to a person, I guess it would probably be like some sort of like challenges, like you have to be their butler or whatever, like a Seinfeld situation. You have to give some of your life for theirs. I'm not sure, but it would be something like that, right?
I don't know.
No?
So are you talking about as a punitive measure?
I mean, aren't these sort of payouts generally, at least at some level, punitive in nature?
I think probably they are, but I mean, sure, some of the reasoning is based on a punitive measure, but some of it is certainly based on like compensating you for expenses incurred as a result of injury or something, right? Like if you
Mm,
hit me with your car and I missed a bunch of work because I was in the hospital, um, I would want you to pay me those lost wages, right?
right.
So, in a certain extent, I think it's getting at like justice and trying to um, compensate someone who's been wronged. But it's not punitive against you. It's just that you're the one who's deemed responsible.
Right. That's fair. I mean, I'm not sure I see a huge difference in that. I mean, in the end, the result is the same, right?
Well, I mean, I think it gets to your post scarcity world question. In a post scarcity world where there are no wages because there's no money, because there's all the resources you could want,
Right.
do I need to do anything if I accidentally hit you with my car?
I think that comes down to who's receiving the money, right? Like the value that you're giving for that life, right? If you're like a hermit that knows no one and you're accidentally killed in some way that somebody is found responsible for, and there's no one to provide value to, then you have no value, I guess, right? In a post scarcity.
So let me put it so it sounds like you're saying that a person's value is related to their relationships with others and their sort of like social connections.
Yeah, I mean that is right. It's based on their own attributes, who's getting the money, and the equation, the decisions we use to make how much is based on who's giving the money, and then who's receiving the money is definitely a factor. You can't just throw the money away.
Yeah, I mean, like I even think about this when people are talking about like um so for instance, when people talk about like eating animals, right? Vegetarianism versus omnivory. Um and people are saying like, oh, uh some people eat dogs, whereas other people keep dogs as pets. What's the difference, right?
Mm.
And to me, I think the difference is some people have a they
Non-food
put
value.
yeah they are invested in they're like socially invested in the welfare of an animal. It makes them feel good. It has value to them, and
Mm.
there that confers value. So nothing, like I think I would argue that nothing has inherent value.
Do we pay out people in courts for lost sentimental value? Like it's like, oh, I really loved that
Well,
rock.
is it? I don't. So I don't know, but is that like not sort of pain and suffering? Is that like sort of the
Yeah,
equivalent?
I suppose that's
So
true.
we,
I just think there is a bit of a
so we
contract
might.
socially to say like, yeah, some people value dogs, some people value parrots, and people kind of
Right.
get on board with both of those. But if somebody's like, I really value this couch and I die for it or whatever, we're gonna be like, nah, it's a couch, guys.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, I think this gets back to the example you gave.
Hmm?
What's the value of someone who is, say, living living on a deserted island, and let's say they're in a coma, so that they don't have any awareness of their own consciousness? Just because you could make the
In,
argument
in
that like,
in a post scarcity economy, this is really
no,
conceptual
no,
though.
no, no,
Okay,
no, no. There's still scarcity.
okay.
But I'm just saying, like someone who's on a deserted island has no social connections, and is not aware of their own existence, so they can't perceive the gain or loss of their consciousness. Do they have a value?
If somebody is aware of them, I suppose they might have a value, because somebody might value the curiosity of that
Okay.
island. Like if you were to
But
destroy
no
an
one's aware
alien,
of them. I'm saying no one is aware that they even exist.
I want to say there is value, but I can't justify it. Like if
Interesting.
we were to accidentally destroy an alien world somehow, and everyone on that world was like obviously within the same social connection, I feel like there's lost value there. Is it potential
Only if you know
value?
about it.
It's potential value, because we could have found out about it and then
It makes
extracted
you think.
value.
It makes you think, right? Like what, like the risks of that we pose to when we send out like space probes, right? I guess that's why they sterilize them really well, because they don't want us to introduce Earth microbes into a potentially alien ecosystem.
Yeah, or someone's like, or some alien world's like really susceptible to like hand-drawn line art of men and women in gold, or whatever that disc was.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, it's
The
potential.
Voyager.
We don't know
I
anything
think it was.
about these aliens. They could definitely. Where
Yeah.
are we in this conversation? Maybe we should
I don't know.
reconvene.
All right.